We have here a medical program. We call it the Medicine Preparation Program, and it's led by me, Sephora, the head of medicine. So, what is the Medicine Preparation Program? We have designed an in-depth program specifically for prospective medics. And this program is bespoke. It's very much tailored to our students, and it's to support them in making their preparations to eventually make an application to a medical school at university. We have a high success rate of students being offered places on medical courses, and year on year, we are increasingly our students are being offered more and more places. So for the upcoming September 2025 entry, so the current year 13 students, we've had 12 students who want to apply to medical school. All 12 of them have at least one place. Most of them have more than one offer. So collectively, they've had 26 places at medical school offered to them. And there they are. So that's them on graduation day, looking very, very happy and pleased that they have got medical school offers on the table. So the medicine preparation program here at Abbey is not just run by me. There's actually a team of staff members. So we are a team of three. So in addition to me leading the program, I'm also a teacher on the program because we run a series of lessons to support our students to get into medical school, and I'm also a university advisor, so I help to channel students to the right applications. My colleague, Nick Holmes, who is in the left of the picture there, he also teaches and advises students on the universities to which they can apply. And then David Shah, he's the Director of Studies. He's not involved in the academic side of things, but what he is, his role is to help students with their applications, and he really double checks the administrative aspects, such as their qualifications, and will be able to answer other questions in relation to their applications. So students are thoroughly supported quite carefully to ensure that they're able to have the best chance of being offered a place at medical school. So who is the medicine program specifically designed for? It's for year 12 and year 13 students. And so before we go any further, I do need to define who is a medic. Um, so a student who wants to apply to study to one of the following courses at university. So it would be medicine. So specifically, they will want to qualify as a medical doctor. Dentistry, so they're specifically qualifying as a dentist, and veterinary medicine, so specifically to qualify as a veterinarian. So I wanted to make those definitions particularly clear because sometimes students misunderstand and they think that medicine in the UK actually means to become a scientist. That's not who this particular program is for. We have other ways of supporting those students, but this program here is specifically if they want to be a medical doctor, a dentist, or a veterinarian. And the reason why we have to have an entire program dedicated to these three careers only is because they are challenging to get into in the UK, and students have to prepare quite significantly over 2 years in order to make their applications competitive enough. So to be admitted onto our medicine program at the start of year 12, we need to check students' qualifications. So students will need to have a realistic chance of being accepted onto a medicine course upon completion of Year 13 studies. So I can see a couple of hands going up and some questions in the chat. I think we'll leave questions until the end, if that's okay. Um, all right. So, but before I delve more deeply into the medicine program itself, a question that's commonly asked as, is there support for students who don't want to study medicine at university? So absolutely there is. So whilst the medicine preparation program is not for other healthcare professionals, students who do wish to study other healthcare professions or indeed any other sciences, they are also supported outside of the medicine preparation program. We have what's called the pre-degree diploma for all Year 12 students. But today specifically, I'm going to focus on the requirements for being accepted into medical school in the UK, and therefore the requirements for being accepted onto our medicine program. So, if you've got students, I know that there's a number of agents joining us today, as well as some students as well. So if you're the agent of a student or the parent of a student who's joining us at the start of Year 12, or in fact, if you're a student yourself, what am I looking for in September in order for us to admit a student onto our medic program? Where we're looking to see that the student can make a realistic competitive medical school application when they're in Year 13. Because if they join our medicine program at the start of Year 12 without having checked their qualifications first, we could actually be wasting the students' time when they should be really focused on their A-level studies. So to qualify for Year 1 of A-levels, which will enable the ability to make a competitive medical school application, students should have come to us with qualifications that would suggest that they would be able to cope with the demands of medicine. So we would be looking to see that they have achieved A grades and A star grades in their GCSEs in a minimum really of 6 or 7 subjects, especially including sciences and maths. They would also need to have a first language English qualification. A lot of international students will come to us having studied second language GCSE. Or they may have studied first language English but not achieved a minimum of level 6. Or some students may have even studied first language English and even achieved a minimum of level 6, but their school didn't test them on the speaking and listening component. So if students haven't got the English language requirement, that's not a deal breaker. If not, they will need to be studying for their IELTS exam. However, what we do look for is that students have studied GCSEs, or if not GCSEs, a home country equivalence. Okay, so this usually means completion of a home country high school certificate. So for some countries, that would mean that they have completed Year 12 in their home country. So if you're unsure as to whether or not you meet the requirements, please do speak to us. Please do send us your home country qualification equivalents so we can see whether a student is ready to actually start A-levels with us with a view to then apply for medicine at the end of Year 13. When they join us for A-levels, they need to pick 3 subjects at the start of the year. Or actually, they pick 4 subjects in September, but they need to really ensure that they're studying the correct 3 subjects at a minimum. So they need to study chemistry. So all medical schools require this subject. They also need to choose biology. Almost all medical schools also require biology to have been studied, and a third science. So at Abbey College, we strongly recommend that this is maths. Very rarely students may not study maths, they may study physics or something else like psychology. However, we recommend maths as being the best third option because they will need to be able to use mathematical analysis when they go to medical school. So that's why our students generally study chemistry, biology, and then also maths as well. So, to be perfectly clear, medical schools require only 3 subjects at A level. They do not require 4, with the exception of Oxbridge. So if an international student is interested in applying to Oxford or Cambridge, then they would have a better chance of getting into those 2 particular medical schools if they're studying for A levels. But for all other medical schools, they only require 3 subjects, including for international students. When students join Abbey College in September at the start of year 12, students always start on 4 subjects and then they later drop one in January. And that's just to give them a variety of subjects, just to see what they're good at. And it enables them to drop subjects that they perhaps don't like very much in December, or subjects that they haven't performed as well as they hoped in. Okay. All right, so the other university prerequisites besides A levels are they must sit the UCAT, the University Clinical Aptitude Test. And this test is taken in July to September before the applications are made. And this is really the most important prerequisite of them all, arguably, because all students sit this test that puts all students on an even playing field and allows the universities to compare the students more fairly. Students must have conducted clinical shadowing. So sometimes this gets called work experience, but work experience is a broad term. So we're very, very specific with our students. There's actually 2 types of work experience that they have to do. One of them is clinical shadowing. That means the students go in and they observe a doctor, either in a GP or a clinic setting, or in a hospital setting. And if they have done this in their home country, that's really valued. Students often say, "Oh, I went to see a doctor in my home country's hospital. Will the universities in the UK recognise it?" They absolutely will, because they like it when students are able to compare the UK health service to their home country. So please do encourage your students to get clinical shadowing in their home country if they can. Sometimes it's actually easier to do that in their home country than it is in the UK. So that's one type of work experience, clinical shadowing, where they observe doctors, clinicians performing the job. The other type of the other type of work experience, sorry, is where they have completed 6 months of volunteer work at a minimum in a healthcare settings. So this is where students physically go in to a healthcare setting such as a hospice or a hospital ward, and it's the students themselves that are doing the work. It's the students that are interacting with the patients. So we assist students to get both types of work experience, and we do that straight away in September. We make those applications as soon as we allow them to join our medicine program. John, I can see that there's probably a number of hands and questions that have gone up. Perhaps if we address some of them at this point.
Hi, Sephora. The main questions were just about kind of admissions related, so I've responded to those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
they're not medicine related specifically.
Okay. All
No worries.
right then. No problem. I'll carry on in that case. Thank you. All right, so what about if a student joins us at the start of year 12? They're intending to start A levels with us, and they say, Sephora, I really want to be a doctor, I really want to be a dentist. Please accept me onto your medic program. So I have a look at their qualifications, and I can see that they don't have either GCSEs or they don't have even home country equivalents, maybe because they're a bit young. Um, if they don't have those qualifications, what ACC also offers, in addition to A levels, we actually teach GCSE here as well. We offer an excellent 2-year GCSE program, so that's year 10 and year 11 in the UK. That's for the younger students. Sometimes students are a little bit older and they won't necessarily have any GCSEs or equivalents in their home country. Um, in that case, they may actually be offered the 1-year accelerated GCSE program. So that's where they study 2 years of GCSEs in 1 year. So the option which is best for an individual very much depends on the age of the student and to what year, and even more importantly, to what year they have studied in their home country education system. So that's something that they will work with us and the vice principal and the principal when they join so that we can channel them into the right program, because obviously we want to support any student to become a doctor if that's their dream, but we need to make sure that they have the correct qualifications. So, what is the application to medical school process in the UK? So, there is an organisation called the Universities and College Admissions Service, shortened to UCAS. So UCAS is the way that all students, regardless of whether they want to study medicine or not, any university course at all, specifically in the UK, they make an application through UCAS. So generally, students are not applying to the university directly. They make an application via this organization called UCAS. And all students apply to 5 courses through UCAS. So if they, for example, if we just leave medicine aside for the moment, if they want to if they want to study law, they might apply to 5 different law courses. If they want to study engineering, they might apply to 5 different engineering courses through UCAS. With medical school, it's slightly different. They are only allowed to apply to 4 UK medical schools via UCAS rather than 5. And that's not an Abbey College rule, that's a UCAS rule. Um, and the reason being is that it is incredibly challenging to get into medical school in the UK. So what we don't want to happen is for students to be rejected from 5 medical schools and then they have no university option at all. So therefore, UCAS only allows students to apply to 4 UK medical schools. Their fifth option, which we call the safety option, is that they apply to a course that's uh, in the biomedical science related fields, so that if they are rejected from 4 medical schools, they will at least have an option to still go to university. Now, we recommend biomedical science as the best safety option because the biomedical science course is designed with students in mind who eventually might want to go and study medicine at a graduate level. So there are various biomedical science courses available in the UK. Um, so some of them may allow a transfer to medicine following successful completion of a biomedical science course. 1 or 2 of them sometimes allow students to transfer from biomedicine to medicine, perhaps at the end of year one or at the end of year two, but that is an incredibly rare offer. Sometimes universities will make that. So students will apply through UCAS at the start of year 13, which is the second year of A level. And for September 2026 entry, the deadline for making an application is October 15th. Usually the UCAS deadline is October 15th. And so already our current year 12s have made lots and lots and lots of preparations throughout year 12, the first year of A level, to enable them to meet that October 15th deadline in 2025 for September 2026 entry. So what does it mean to apply to medical school? So through the application, Abbey College will submit predicted grades for that student, what we think that they are likely to achieve. So at the very minimum, to make their application competitive through UCAS, this should be 3 A grades, preferably with a mixture of A stars and A grades in there. And also I will write a reference, or my colleague would write a reference for that student. The student will write a personal statement explaining why they want to be a doctor and what they know about the medicine profession, so that they would need to talk about their volunteer work experiences within that personal statement, as well as their clinical shadowing experiences, plus any additional reading that they may have done, or any conversations they may have had with doctors. They really, really need to show that they understand what it means to be a doctor, a dentist, or a vet. And students will also need to meet an English language requirement before they start a medicine course. So they will usually have a GCSE requirements, but for international students, the majority of our international students actually have to sit an IELTS exam. So for the majority of medical schools in the UK specifically, this will be an overall score of 7.5 with no lower than 7 in any component. Some medical schools do have an offer of 7 for IELTS, but it's still quite high. There are other medical schools that will ask for slightly less than 7 or 7.5, but I'll talk about those later. What I'm describing now is the standard UK medical school requirements. So a lot of our students, after they've made their UCAS application, international students also have the option to apply to UK medical schools directly to the medical school, so outside of UCAS. Which is really handy because this means that there are more options for international students. So for medicine only, the UK university options are students can make an application to Brunel University. The vast majority of places at Brunel University are actually for international students rather than British students. There is a private university called Buckingham School of Medicine, which students can apply to. There's UCLan as well, one of the most popular option for Abbey College students. And there is another option called Queen Mary Malta, which is basically the same university as Queen Mary London, but they have a campus on the island of Malta in Southern Europe. But they have the same entry requirements and the same interview process. It's just a different campus. But for that particular campus, the students can apply directly to the Malta campus directly. That's not the same for Queen Mary in London. Queen Mary in London, the students would have to make that application via UCAS. Other non-UK options, which are also very, very popular choices for our students at Abbey College and also fantastic universities, there's St. George's University, Grenada. They only offer a medicine course there at the moment, and that's an American system of university, and students will study either the entirety of their course in Granada itself, or possibly do part of their course in Newcastle, because they've got a Newcastle campus in the north of England, and then study the rest of their course in Grenada. There's the University of Antigua. Again, that's another Caribbean American style university. Again, only medicine. We've got RCSI. That's in Ireland, a very, very popular choice for students. They also offer dentistry now, so I just need to update those slides, but that's medicine and dentistry for that one. Another increasingly popular choice is Nicosia Medical School in Cyprus, also in the Mediterranean in Europe. That one offers both medicine and veterinary sciences. Another option for international students is to apply via the IUMC, which stands for the Irish Universities and Medical School Consortium. For that one, they can apply to a further 4 Irish or medical or dental schools, depending on where the students is from. So that's why I say up to. There are some students that may only be able to access 1 or 2 of those universities. For British students, they can also apply to Ireland, but they don't apply through IUMC. They can apply through the Central Applications Office, which is a similar system to UCAS, but specifically for Ireland. And so the CAO option, that's only available for the UK and the EU students, but all other students outside the UK, the EU, EEA region, they would need to apply to Ireland via the IUMC consortium. Now, all of these additional application routes are really useful for Abbey College students. They really do underpin the degree of success with getting students into medical school at Abbey. So we have experience at supporting students through all these. Now, of course, this isn't a complete list. Some of our other students also apply to universities in Europe. So there's a number of other countries where students have gone on to study medicine and dentistry, such as Spain, Hungary, the Czech Republic, Serbia, Italy. So we can support students with making applications to other universities that are not on this list as well. So what does the journey look like from year 12? So the Abbey College Cambridge Pathways to Medical School from year 12. So when students join us at the start of year 12, all students will study the AS year of A level. So that's year 1 of A level. So where I've talked about year 1, we're talking about they study AS year of A level. Then if students do really well in AS and they really want to continue studying A2 and they want to apply for medicine, they go on to study year 2 of A level. However, some of our international students sometimes struggle in their AS year. Perhaps they're not going to get A grades, the A grades that they need. So actually, what we also offer at Abbey College, which makes us quite unique, is an alternative program for our international students. So we have what's called the International Foundation Program, the IFP. So those students that perhaps have only got sort of C grades or D grades at the end of year 12, and it looks like they might struggle with getting A grades by staying on the A2, we offer the alternative pathway, which many medical schools recognise, and that's the key here. So if students go on to study A2, if they stay on the A-level program in year 13, they're able to apply to 4 UK medical schools via UCAS, and then they're also able to apply to additional medical schools directly to the universities after they've submitted their UCAS application. For the IFP students, it's a little bit more limited. They can make applications to UCAS, but not for medicine courses. So the IFP students can make other applications to UCAS, perhaps for pharmacy or biology or chemistry or whatever they wish through UCAS. But if they still also want to continue trying to make a medical school application, they can only go via the direct route for medicine. Okay, so how do we support the students over the 2 years? So the very first thing we do is we support them to obtain clinical shadowing experiences. So we've got 2 hospitals that are local to us that will accept students from Abbey College, Cambridge. One of the hospital is is Addenbrooke's, which is just down the road from Abbey College. And the other hospital is about 40 minutes on the train away, and that's West Suffolk Hospital. So students can download the application forms from these local hospitals' websites, but we ask if they are joining Abbey College in year 12 that they don't do this independently. We would prefer to guide them through the application process to the hospitals because even these are quite competitive. So we need to help students to make the most competitive application to the hospitals so that we can give them the best possible chance of the hospital offering them a place. So it's like making a mini university application. The other thing that we do is we provide students with the contact details of surgeries in local areas, such as GP surgeries, dental surgeries, and veterinarian practices. So students can go and clinically shadow potentially doctors, dentists, and vets in a clinical setting out in the community. We call that the primary care. But also on top of that, they can go and clinically shadow doctors in secondary care in the local hospitals. So it would be useful for students to get all types of clinical shadowing opportunities because they are quite different healthcare settings, and it just helps them understand even more about how the NHS, our National Health Service, is run in the UK, as well as what it means to practice as a doctor, a dentist, and a vet. However, universities do recognise that attaining clinical shadowing can be very challenging in the UK. So they don't penalise students for not having clinical shadowing. However, what they will expect students to do is to learn as much about the profession as possible. So it's really important that the very, very minimum students complete online courses. So the 2 courses that we complete on the medicine preparation program is called the online Observe GP course and the Brighton and Sussex Medical School. So the online Observe GP course, it's like being in a GP practice. The BSMS is more like gaining hospital shadowing. There's other courses that we would recommend for aspiring dentists and vets as well. Abbey College also invests in our students, so we pay for them to go on the Invest and Online Young Doctor, Dentist and Young Vets weekend programs in term 1 of year 12. Some examples of volunteer work that students should attain. Ideally, it would be volunteer work in a care home or a nursing home or even a hospital ward. because really what universities will want um, is for students to have had actual experience with patients directly, rather than other types of volunteering. So they value healthcare volunteering the most greatly. But there are age limits in the UK for students to volunteer in a care home or a nursing home. So usually these will be limited to a minimum of 18. Sometimes they will accept 17-year-olds. However, the really nice thing about having Adam Brooks Hospital as our local hospital is that they have a young persons program specifically for students aged 16 to 18. And a lot of our students volunteer on this young persons program where they go in and they interact with patients who are in hospital wards. Local to us, we also have the Sephora Wildlife Park for vets, so they can go in and volunteer with working with animals and animal care. Other examples of volunteer work that Abbey College students do is that they work in hospices. So our local hospice is Arthur Rank and Each Hospice. Arthur Rank is always very, very impressed with Abbey College students because they're always so polite and engaged and friendly and hardworking and all of those wonderful descriptions. So Arthur Rank are particularly keen in Abbey College students going to do some volunteer work for them. And the students really enjoy volunteering for Arthur Rank as well. So it's a really nice partnership that we have with them. Now, for students who are young but are still very, very keen to experience some volunteer work before they join our medical program or even whilst they're doing our medical program, there is an online volunteer program they can do with the Medic Portal. For a small fee, they can join that course and reflection program. And that's something they can do before doing actual volunteer work in the community if they wish. We also support students greatly with doing the best that they can with the UCAT exam because this exam is very challenging and it's the one that all medical schools use to judge whether students would make a suitable candidate for medical school. So we have dedicated lessons each week for students to rehearse UCAT questions. And that normally starts in January. Furthermore, Abbey College will also invest in UCAT training, so we pay for our students to attend a one-day live course delivered by a UCAT expert. On top of that, we also pay for students to have 5 private tuition sessions with a tutor online. We also buy extra questions, an online question bank for them, and they can also do an online course as well. And that is all done through the Medic Portal as a really comprehensive package to support students to do the very best that they can in the UCAT exam. Through our program, we also encourage students to do some reading. So here's some reading examples that students can do in their own time. Get on with reading. Reading is really, really important. So often that they can understand more deeply the medical profession from a doctor, dentist, or vet's perspective. They can have a deeper understanding of medical ethics and the challenges of these difficult professions. So what does our medicine preparation program journey look like? It is very thorough, it is very intensive, and it does underpin the success that we have. This is why we're able to achieve so many medical school offers. So as soon as they join us in year 12, term 1, once I've checked the students' qualifications to make sure that they are going to be able to make a realistic application to medical school at the end of year 13. As I say straight away, we support students with making work experience applications for clinical shadowing and volunteer work placements. And then that's just term one. So that's from September to December. In December, we then ask the students to sit some exams to make sure that it's suitable for them to remain on the medicine program. And if they don't do very well on those exams, perhaps staying on the medicine program isn't appropriate for them because there is a lot of work that would need to be done for medicine preparation in January. And so therefore, perhaps we ask the students just to focus on their A level so that they're not being distracted by medicine preparations. But if they do remain on the medicine program in the January of year 12, this is where the work becomes very intensive. So they will start to have up to 4 extra lessons a week so that they can learn about our National Health Service, medical ethics, university course options. We teach them extra scientific topics. We give students lots of opportunities to learn about science by doing research projects. They will also do presentations because they need to learn and get comfortable with speaking to an audience and talking confidently about science and medicine. We also start then making applications to medical school. So we start writing the personal statements. And then I look at their grades, the grades that they're getting throughout the term. And I also start working with the students to make the most appropriate plan that is personalized for them in terms of the pathway to medical school. So it's starting to think about which universities would be most appropriate for them to apply. And then hopefully at the end of year 12, they've done really well and they're either going to go on to study year 13 at A level, or they'll study year 13 on the IFP program. And then they come back to us in September. At that point, they should be taking the UCATs by the end of September. And then it's all about university preparations. So we do lots and lots of university interview rehearsal. The UCAS application would need to be finalized and sent up, that should say by October 15th, 2025. Sorry if that hasn't saved properly, that change. There are also some non-university non-UCAS university submissions that are made in November and December. And we may even start giving students mock interviews as well for any early interviews. And then that continues in term 2 and term 3 of year 13 as well. We continue giving students mock interviews for any real interviews that they may be offered. Okay, so what can students do before joining us to start their medicine application preparation journey? Okay, so read as many books, read as many scientific and medical journal articles as they can, because universities will test them on any recent developments for medicine. They need to be aware of medicine and science in the news. If they can, it would be fantastic if they could try and get some clinical shadowing in a medical setting in their home country. There's so many online courses that they can do. If possible, they could do some volunteer work, perhaps in their home country. That volunteer work may not necessarily be in a healthcare setting because they may be young, but any volunteering that they can do in the community would be helpful. So sometimes students work in a charity shop, for example, or they might do other work with charities. That is all good because universities will want to see that they are kind and compassionate people and they're willing to dedicate their time for the good of others. But online video clips, YouTube is really, really useful. So they can watch video clips about the NHS, about university, interview question styles. There is a wealth of information that they could be doing, they can be getting just by looking at YouTube. The Medic portal, the website is there. They can look on that to start comparing courses, different types of medical school courses. That's something they could start doing, and they should self-reflect. It's really important to be honest with themselves. Is applying to a medical school the right thing for them? Because in reality, it is a very, very difficult career. It's a difficult job to have. Um, they're going to be faced with injuries and suffering and things like that. So is that something that they want to be doing day in and day out? And for most people, the answer will be no. Studying medicine isn't right for them, and that's okay. And we can then support students to apply for other courses through our pre-degree diploma course. But by doing all of this preparation in advance, it helps the students to really answer the question uh, as to whether applying to medical school is the right thing for them. Because obviously, on top of A-level preparations, they're also having to make many other preparations for a medical school application. So it's a very, very intense 2 years for the students. So what do students need to bring with them in September to ensure a successful start to the medicine preparation program? They need to bring their certificates with them. So it's essential that they've got their GCSE or IGCSE certificates or any home country equivalents. It's really useful if they could start finding their vaccination records as well. Because when they're making clinical shadowing and volunteer work applications, if they actually are offered a place at a hospital or a care home or a hospice, they all want to see that the students are vaccinated, because obviously they're very concerned about infection control. And so sometimes students find that difficult to get hold of their vaccination records when they join us. So it would be much easier for them to look for those records over the summer and have those ready for making those applications in September. On the desirable list, it's desirable, not essential. If they've got any evidence of any home country clinical shadowing or volunteer work, if they've got any certificates or letters from those, bring those along. They don't need to worry if they don't have those experiences. What is really important for students is that when they are undertaking clinical shadowing and volunteer work, is to write down what they have learned from those experiences. What have they learned about interacting with unwell people? What kind of behaviors is important for them in order to be able to interact carefully and compassionately with unwell people? What kind of behaviors and skills and attributes are the doctors showing when they're treating patients? What kind of medical ethics are they adhering to? So any notes that they can make whilst clinical shadowing or volunteering is going to be very, very helpful for them to remember what they learnt when it comes to making a medical school application. So if you want to find out more about our medicine program, we have some pages on the Abbey College website. So the link is there, and they can click on the medicine program link under the Elite University Preparation tab. Okay, so that's the introduction to the medicine program now completed. I can now take some questions.
Thank you, Sephora. That was really in depth. If anyone has any specific questions they'd like to ask, please, now is the time to do so. We're very happy to answer them. I think there were a few pre-registration questions which we've sort of covered a little bit in the session, but if you want any more detail, please do drop us a question via the chat or the Q&A. I think we talked about the different pathways to medicine, Sephora, in terms of
Mm.
both the biomedical sciences pathway and the International Foundation Program pathway. And we also have talked a little bit about the potential international medical schools that some of our students will go to as well. Um, if students wanted to apply outside of those medical schools to other medical schools, I know in the past we've had students who've gone to different medical schools outside of the ones we usually work with.
Yeah.
Is that a process that we encourage, or is it a process we can support?
Yes, absolutely. Both. The answer to both of those questions is yes, encourage and support, because obviously our students have this dream of becoming a doctor, and they do understand that it is quite challenging, and it's really important that if you want to become a doctor or a dentist, and that's your goal, um, that that you can find the best route to make that dream come alive.
Excellent. That's good to hear, because I know we've had that in the past where students have gone looked at specific universities. So we're very happy to be
Yeah.
flexible. Obviously, we have our own universities that we work really closely. Um, but that's great. We've had a question pop up about the minimum English level for joining the medical prep program. So I think you talked about that in the session, but if you can just go over that again, Sephora, just in
Yeah.
terms of the students coming, what level of English do we expect?
Yeah. So we expect that so the minimum level of English that we would expect would be actually the minimum level of English that Abbey College has in order for them to join our Year 12 program. So it's a little bit different with the English. Whilst I look very carefully at the GCSEs and look to see that they have got at least 6 or 7 subjects at A grade, with English, very often the students, because they are international students, won't have met the minimum English language requirements. So if they've got the right GCSEs or home country qualifications, they can still come onto the program, but they have to be studying academic English alongside their A levels at the same time. So the answer to that question is the English level required to be on our medicine program is no different to the English language requirement that we have in place for being accepted into Abbey College at all.
So that would be a minimum of IELTS 5.5 for direct entry into our A-level program. We do also have a pre-session or an academic preparation program with students have a slightly lower English level, but again, that's definitely something to raise when you're making the application, so we can look at the specific requirements. As Sephora said earlier in the webinar, your medicals are expecting IELTS 7.0 or 7.5. So obviously we need to make sure we can get you up to the right level, certainly as we're
Yeah.
working through. They also don't need to have had an IELTS test to come into our program, but the IELTS test will be something we will facilitate as
Yeah.
part of the application. So
Exactly. So some students might have had an IELTS test for visa purposes, and that IELTS result at the start of the year 12 is probably not going to be a 7. That's not going to prevent them from getting onto the the medicine program. What would prevent them from getting onto the medicine program is if their grades in their subjects, their other non-English subjects, are too low, because we need them to have a realistic chance of being accepted into medical school at the end of year 13. But even more importantly, we also need to ensure that they're going to be able to cope with studying biology, chemistry, and maths at a level that they're going to then be able to achieve A grades. So that's why the GCSE non-English subjects are really important there.
great, thank you, Sephora. We've had a question from Alicia just asking about whether medical schools pay attention to the nationality, specifically of non-EU and EU students, when looking at their applications. Um, and is there a cap for non-EU applicants? And I suppose are EU applicants part of that cap anyway? So
It really depends on the university. So that they will have their own rules, and every university is different. So every medical school in the UK will have a specific number of places for international students. So with the standard UK medical schools, normally that's only about 10 places for international students. even though they may have 500 places overall for medicine students, only 10 or 20 of them might be for international students. So that would be something for our students to take up with each individual university. There's no one answer for that at all.
And am I right in assuming that some universities don't have any international students? It's just British
Yes,
students, or yeah,
there
so
are
some don't have.
there are a couple, yeah, there are a few in the UK that don't have any places at all for international students. So obviously we ignore those universities, we don't make applications there. But then on the flip side is the other universities that only have places for international students. And so we work very closely with them. And they like Abbey College students. A lot of those universities make our students offers. So
Yeah, and we should probably stress as well, regardless of the intake, the demographics of the students, that the degree that you're getting is the same degree essentially, because it's kind of regulated by the General Medical Council. So there's no differentiation in those
yes,
courses from the point of view of medicine.
yes, we
Perfect.
do a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sephora.
Uh, yeah, so we do a lot of work with the students to explain to them that it's not about the university. It is about ensuring that that particular university is accepted by the General Medical Council. So we don't look at things like university rankings or anything like that. We totally discourage students from looking at those kinds of measures because they are very, very unhelpful. The General Medicine Council in the UK sees all medical schools as equal because they all have to adhere by the same standards.
Perfect. Thank you, Serena. I've had a question from Serena, just asking who can I contact for more info on admissions. Serena, I will put you in touch with the relevant person. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe you're based in Singapore from your registration. So I'll make sure that our admissions manager for that region is in touch with you to provide a bit more information on admissions. We've had a question from Julia just asking about the statistics of successful applications to medicine after the prep program. Now, Sephora, I know you talked about this in the presentation. We had obviously a very high success rate this year, but I think we generally average well over 90%, if I'm right,
Yeah.
year on year.
Yes, absolutely. I've been running this program for 4 years now. So this year we've had 100% success rates. Yeah, absolutely. It's generally between 90 and 100%. Usually it's above 95%.
Yeah, and I think that marks, that speaks to the incredible preparation work we do for our medic students. Bearing in mind that the vast majority of our medic students are also international students, the fact we have that really high success rate, but also the fact that we have a bespoke program like this and teaching staff who are dedicated. Obviously, Sephora mentioned about the team who kind of work on medicine applications. We're able to have really, really close contact with the admissions tutors at medical schools, with those medical schools, to make sure that they rate and they value our students. So having a bespoke program like this has those advantages.
Yeah.
On top of the amazing teaching and the amazing preparation work we do as well, we have a lot of links with those medical schools, and we're able to offer different pathways. We've had one question on the Q&A, and thank you for your questions. We're going to finish up fairly soon because we're sort of at the end of our hour, but I'll do one more question on the Q&A, and then if you do have any other questions, please do send them to when we send you the email post event. Just asking about alternatives to UKVI IELTS for visa process, an entry to a pre-med program. Now, obviously, we talked about kind of application into Abbey College Cambridge for the medicine program. You do not need the IELTS tests. So there are various ways of establishing the level of English for students. Some of our students will have taken GCSE English. That's not a problem if you haven't taken that as well. We do have an English test that you can take as part of the application program that's administered online. So there's absolutely no barriers in terms of establishing the level of English and having to have a formal test before you apply to us. Obviously, if we're talking about entry into medical school, Sephora's already mentioned about the kind of the IELTS level and the test that you'll need to do as part of that program. But obviously, we support students in their preparation for English, and also in terms of making sure that they secure that test in good time as part of their application for medicine. Excellent. Sephora's nodding, says that I think I've answered that question satisfactorily, so I'm happy. She's got nothing else to add. Thank you very much, everyone. We're going to finish up there. Like I say, if you do have any questions, please do send them to us after the event. We'll be in touch. We'll also send you a copy of the recording. I know we got asked about the slides for the session. We will send those as well in PDF format, so you can read those at your leisure. And if you do have any follow-up questions after the event, please do send them back to us, and we will make sure Sephora or one of her colleagues will be able to respond in good time. We want to be able to support you if you're making an application to medicine, but also if you're counselling your students or your son or daughter about medicine applications. So we want to make sure that we can support that as best as possible and make sure you make the right decision and go in with all the information you need. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll let Sephora say goodbye and then we'll sign off.
Okay, yeah, thank you for joining us. And yeah, absolutely. If you've got any questions about the process specifically, do email John. He'll forward those on to me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay,
Bye
thank
bye.
you. Bye.